There has long been a debate about which Cobra Kai character is the replacement for Ralph Macchio's Daniel LaRusso as the Karate Kid franchise's title character, and although I understand the various arguments for Robby Keene, Tanner Buchanan, there's another character who fits the profile more accurately. The Cobra Kai characters are a blend of new and old faces, which helps push the franchise forward while constantly honoring its past. By the end of Cobra Kai's final season, it's clear that the sequel show was about William Zabka's Johnny Lawrence all along, but the other characters' plots were prominent throughout. Entering the fray as Johnny's neglected son and one of Daniel's first Miyagi-Do students, Cobra Kai seemed to be setting up Robby to inherit the Karate Kid title from his first sensei. However, Robby's story took several twists and turns that both strayed from and reaffirmed his claim to the role as the franchise's heir apparent. By the end of the show, I understand why Robby fans would still champion him as the character who was quietly replacing Daniel, but I'm also convinced they are wrong in thinking that Miguel Diaz was Cobra Kai's only true Karate Kid. The original arc that defined Daniel's story also applied to Miguel. 1984's The Karate Kid kick-started the franchise with an arc for Daniel that would go on to define the series. He was an underdog kid who was new to the area, and he immediately found himself dealing with bullies. At this point, an experienced sensei, Pat Morita's Mr. Miyagi, steps in to defend Daniel and also teaches him how to defend himself. This storyline was replicated in the 2010 movie of the same name starring Jackie Chan, and looks to also be the plot for the upcoming Karate Kid, Legends. So, the franchise clearly values this pattern. Taking this narrative framework and holding it up against Cobra Kai and Colo Marijuana's Miguel Diaz is the only character who fits the mold so perfectly. Even after the earliest stages of Daniel's story had been replicated with Miguel in the role instead, he remained the heart and soul of Cobra Kai. For instance, whenever he started to become corrupted by Sensei Kreese, Martin Kove, we really knew things were getting bad. Plus, whenever Miguel managed to get back on his feet, the hope the audience also had for Johnny and his redemption also surged. Cobra Kai had lots of Karate Kids, but only Miguel's story mirrored Daniel's. Robby and Miguel had a lot of other competition. Cobra Kai had no requirement to replicate Daniel's story at all. The show was simultaneously a legacy sequel to the original Karate Kid movies while also being its own standalone project. So, pretty much any of the younger characters could have taken to the spotlight, and they did, numerous times. As such, the franchise's new lead figure could have been anyone from Miguel, Robby, Sam LaRusso, Mary Mouser, Tori Nichols, Peyton List, or someone else from the huge crop of young fighters. The only thing that was initially clear was that Daniel was no longer the main character, but his story was still replicated with Miguel. Macchio's character served as an on-again and off-again mentor to Miguel, but the fact that they had such an uneven dynamic arguably made it questionable that Marijuana was becoming the new Karate Kid at all. That said, this sporadic connection to Daniel could also be said to have brilliantly masked their similarities, rather than openly admitting that what they experienced was so similar. Robby didn't have to be the new Karate Kid for him to be a great character. Tanner Buchanan played an original and compelling Cobra Kai character. Sure, Robby actually being the franchise's new title character would have been a great plaudit for him, but just because that honor went to Miguel instead, that doesn't mean Robby's story wasn't great in its own right. Not knowing what was going to happen to Buchanan's character next actually added an extra dimension to him that wasn't always present in Miguel. Whereas Miguel was pretty much always destined to either thrive or bounce back from adversity, that wasn't always a guarantee for Robby to. In many ways, Robby was more of an underdog than Miguel, regardless of the latter fulfilling the traditional Karate Kid underdog role throughout most of Cobra Kai. Ultimately, what sets Robby apart from Miguel and Daniel is that Buchanan's character maintains a solid connection to competitive karate after the Seikai Taikai, whereas a traditional Karate Kid character often fights until they feel they don't have to anymore, but Robby proved in Cobra Kai that martial arts are what will continue to give him purpose.